Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Financially Intentional Podcast. I'm excited to be joined by Jordan Berry, and he is a laundromat aficionado. And laundromat businesses are something that people ask me about all the time in regards to starting a business, whether it's a side hustle kind of business or it's just something that they want to invest in for passive income. People are always looking for those passive income streams, but laundromat businesses have always been something that have been very intriguing to me, but I just did not know anything about. So I'm excited to have Jordan here to talk about his experience in the laundromat world. Hey, what's up, Jordan?
Hey, what's up? I am excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. And I do need to say that I feel a little bit of pressure to really bring it today because I know you have a water park day going on over there today. So I
Oh,
got to
yeah.
keep your interest so you don't just boot me off so you can go to the water park.
Oh, no, that's not going to happen, but I'm sure you're going to bring it. You're so experienced. I know you'll knock this out of the park, but I just want to talk about right now, where are you at as far as like your laundromat business and what you're doing right now? How do you use it? Is it your main business? Is it a passive stream of income? Like, how is it working out for you?
Yeah, so you're catching me at a really interesting phase in my laundromat journey. So I own a couple laundromats for almost a decade now, and I just have sold one of them, and I'm down to one laundromat right now. The reason for that is that I am planning on scaling up the portfolio to a much larger size. And in order to do that, I'm kind of getting rid of the smaller stuff and looking to sort of build back up. So I've been in the business for about a decade and I'm sort of pruning the portfolio in order to really hopefully experience some accelerated growth.
That's really, really cool. So you're at a transition point, and I think that's important for people to note. It sounds like it's not just like one thing, set it and forget it. It's something that's constantly evolving and changing. And
Real,
it sounds like it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, what's interesting I find, so like now I've done a ton of like consulting calls and all that stuff. So I'm talking to people all the time who are both in the industry, trying to grow their portfolios and also people who are trying to get in the business. And a lot of what I find, it's not always what happens, but a lot of times what happens is people get into this industry looking for sort of that passive-ish kind of income coming in, and then they find out they really like the business, and so they start thinking about, okay, how can I grow this thing and make it better and
Mm.
bigger? And it's just, it can be a little addictive that way, so beware, buyer beware.
We have been warned. But let's go back and talk about how you got
Yeah,
interested in laundromats.
yeah, so it's a weird story. I mean, nobody really is sitting at the dining room table when they're a kid saying, Mom, I want to be a laundromat owner when I grow up, right? I actually was a pastor for almost 15 years and then was just ready to transition out of doing that as a job and trying to figure out what to do. And I had a great idea, what I thought was a great idea, which was to so we live in Southern California here, own a house. And I was like, why don't we rent out our house and take the money we have in the bank, go buy a condo on the beach in Hawaii and live in Hawaii with our young kids. And then when they're school aged, if we want to come back, we can come back. And my wife said, we could do that, or we could buy a laundromat. And that's how we bought a laundromat.
Most people do. You just buy a condo in Hawaii. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So my wife was like, let's buy a laundromat. And I was like, what? And kind of how that came about was my wife's parents' friend's son, if you can follow that. He worked a tech job in the San Francisco Bay Area and he was making good money, but he was working 70, 80 hours a week. And he ended up buying a laundromat and leaving. He replaced his tech income and leaving that job and was working 5 hours a week at his laundromat. And we saw that and we're like, that sounds really good. Why don't we do that? And so that
Yeah.
is the path that we started. Now, it did not work out like that for us initially,
Uh,
uh, but that was the idea behind it.
wow. I mean, to be able to replace an tech income is not anything like That is very it's not easy to do, right? Tech incomes
Right. Yeah.
are
Yeah.
pretty lucrative. So he sounds like he hit the jackpot on his
Yep.
first try, but results vary,
So,
as you said.
yeah.
But
Case in point, right here, results
right.
varied wildly from his.
So cool. So what was your first purchase?
So I ended up buying a laundromat. It was a fixer-upper laundromat. We call that a zombie mat in our industry. And it was a fixer-upper laundromat. And the broker who helped me out with that did me no favors. He was just trying to make the sale. This was almost a decade ago, and there really wasn't a whole lot of information out there or a whole lot of research to be done on how to buy a laundromat, how to value it, what red flags to look for, and then also how to run a laundromat successfully. So, it really wasn't a whole lot of information out there about it, but I did the best I could. And that broker, he essentially sold me a pipe dream that was never going to happen. And I didn't know any better. And he sold me a laundromat that he projected. The pro forma numbers looked really good. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say pro forma said, hey, you're gonna be netting $5,000 to $6,000 a month from this laundromat. And when I took over, it was losing a couple grand a month for a couple years. So it was a pretty big swing, and it was a pretty big punch to the gut, buying that one
So when
for
did you
sure.
get like the real numbers? Like did he like sell a facade of numbers like that weren't really what's happening, and then after you buy it you found out that it wasn't doing as well as he said it was?
Okay. Let me just preface it this way. So I knew zero about business at the time. I knew zero
Okay.
about real estate investing. I didn't know anything about anything at that time. So let me just, because it's going to get real embarrassing real fast here. I learned a lot of very expensive lessons that
Oh, we have
I
all
wish I
learned
would have just
extensive lessons, so
known.
don't feel
So
embarrassed at all.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not embarrassed anymore, but at the time it was rough. Essentially, the broker was like, "Look, this is a fixer-upper laundromat. It's just breaking even. You really don't need to do any due diligence because the plan is it's breaking even. So we're going to put some new equipment in here, and then the business will blow up, and then you'll hit your pro forma numbers." And I was like, "Okay, that makes sense. I'm not sure why I would need their numbers since it's going to be a totally different place." Made sense in my mind, but it turned out that it wasn't breaking even. It was losing money from the get go. So I was already started off underwater and was not prepared for that. And then I
Right.
went out and bought $150,000 worth of equipment, and business did improve dramatically percentage wise, but I was already underwater, and now I had
Mhm.
also loan payments on top of that. So I stayed underwater for for a really long time without a snorkel.
Yeah. Yeah, because you started in the red. Let me just ask, as far as okay, no financial background, nothing, like trying to start a laundromat business, what is the overhead typically like?
Yeah.
The investment and that's huge equipment, right? And I just
Yeah.
kind of like how'd you go from zero experience to now taking on these massive loans to purchase equipment for this business? And that's just one of the costs, right? You have equipment costs, you have your real estate costs. You bought a was it
Right.
it's commercial real estate, right?
The first one, I just leased the space.
Okay.
The next one,
Mhm.
I did buy the property also. But it's
Okay.
pretty common
Mhm.
in this business to lease the space.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's not a big deal either way. Yeah, I mean, it. Listen, you asked how I did it. I mean, I didn't stop. That's the only explanation I have is I just didn't give up and I didn't quit. Listen, we're connecting here, so I'm just gonna be real with you. If we're honest, people a lot of times are like, man, good on you having the tenacity to keep going when things were looking so bleak. And yes, there's a tiny little bit of that. Part of it was there's this stat that floats around. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from even to this day, but it basically says laundromats have a 95% success rate. And I just could not comprehend how I was in the 5% that couldn't figure this stupid easy business out.
I'm
and and
laughing.
and
Yeah.
a big part of me was just like I'm not going to walk away being in the 5%. Like I'm just not going to do it. But then the other part of it too was I legitimately just didn't even know how to get out. Like I had just sunk a bunch of money into a business that was underwater. It was losing money. Who was going to buy that? Who's going to buy that business from me?
Yeah, it's first of all, now that you've been in the industry for so long, do you feel like that statistic is even true?
I think it's probably a little bit exaggerated. I mean, I think the success rate's super high. This is a
Okay.
pretty stable business. You just got to buy it the right way. One of the things that I truly believe is that if me back then could have a 15-minute conversation with me now, it would have saved me six figures plus, right? Just
Right.
15
Right.
minutes. That's
Right.
all it would have taken. And now there's a lot more information out there for people who are trying to get into this business. There's a lot more resources. Like I do consulting and I have a little consulting team so at least there's somebody to talk to. I was so desperate. I was just like grasping everywhere trying to find somebody who could help me figure out. I was like, I see all these other people succeeding in this business. I know 95 out of 100 people are succeeding. So I feel like I'm just missing like one key piece of
Something.
information or
Yeah.
something, right? That's I'm just not getting me there. It's very frustrating.
Something. Yes, I understand that feeling. But yeah, yeah, it's just people are like, "How did you get through it?" I just did it, right? It was just like day by day. You knew
Yes.
you couldn't fail, so you just kept on moving. But you know what? Sometimes that's what it takes. And I always tell people, like when it comes to gaining knowledge or getting really good at something, you're going to do it one of two ways. You're going to either pay for it in your time and blood, sweat, and tears and labor, or you're going to pay somebody to help you shortcut it. But oftentimes, there aren't people out there that can do that,
Yeah.
or there's a lot of people selling snake oil. It's kind of hard to differentiate. But I think some those early lessons really help shape you as far as you being able to come from a place where you had zero experience
Mm-hmm.
to now having multiple laundromats, spinning that off to get bigger laundromats, being in this for a decade. So your experience is super, super valuable to help shortcut other people who want to help provide other people a shortcut who want to get into the business. But still, like in understanding the laundromat business, I'm super intrigued to kind of just know financially, like for financing, when you first get started, is there like leasing through the washer and dryer
Yeah, like manufacturers,
companies, or
distributors, yeah.
or do you just have to like take out a big bank loan? Like how did you finance it yourself personally in the beginning, and was that the
Yeah.
right way?
Yeah, so the way that I did the first deal was I bought it all cash. I want to say, I mean, this is like a decade ago, and I'm like, listen, I'm getting old now, so my memory is a little. But I want to say it was somewhere around like $65,000, $70,000 what I bought the business for. And then one of the good
So
things
you just
about,
had that money saved?
come on, yeah, no, we did have that money saved. That was
Uh-huh.
that was most of what we had saved. But
Just took your
we
savings.
had
Mhm.
bought we had bought a condo in the Bay Area up in Mountain View and
Oh.
sold it, bought a house, but we had some leftovers. So there was some money
Mhm.
there. And so we bought it all cash, and I wouldn't do that again that
Okay.
way, probably.
Mhm.
But there are 100% financing options on the equipment. And so I
Mm.
did 100% finance that. And that can be a really great option. You can lease the equipment, but almost never does it make sense to do that for a
Mm.
laundromat. Maybe for an
Mm.
apartment complex, you can have a
Mm.
few washers, but for a laundromat, like those are your assets of the business. And so it makes more sense almost always to own them. You get the depreciation on your taxes, you have the responsibility for them. You have those, they're like a hard asset, similar to kind of real estate, which is it's a hedge against inflation, all that stuff, right? So it just makes more
Mhm.
sense usually to own it. So I bought it
And the
all
way and those financing terms are usually like how long?
usually around 7 years. You
Okay.
can get
Okay.
them 2 to sometimes 10 years, but I'd say
Okay.
seven's probably the average
Mm.
that you're paying them off. And so that can be really great. I mean, right now is a interesting time. It's very different than a decade ago when I bought, right? Interest rates are a lot higher.
Mhm.
Prices have gone up, especially since the last couple of years with COVID and all that stuff. So it's a little tricky. I mean, you got to really make sure your numbers make sense now. You can still
Mhm.
get great deals on laundromats, and you can still One of the great things about these businesses is that they're high cash flowing businesses. So if
Mm,
you're, for example, your goal is to leave your job, your 9 to 5, or to achieve financial freedom, I think you should probably consider something like a laundromat even before like real estate, because for a
mm,
laundromat, you're looking at 20 to 25% return on your money without using any loans. And so if you use loans, those returns can actually go even much higher than that.
wow.
And good luck finding that in real estate or really many other places, especially considering the relatively small time commitment of owning a laundromat.
Mm. Yeah, so let's get into that. So you bought that place, or you bought the equipment, like you had a good amount of money to invest initially into the business, and you said you did it wrong, but how long did it take you to turn that first business over into actually being profitable?
Yeah, it took a couple years and
Mhm.
it didn't need to, but
Mhm.
what happened was I got in expecting to make money and have relatively small time commitment. And it ended up being the exact opposite. I was spending a lot of time trying to figure out what was going on and how to turn things around, and I was losing money, right? Exact
Mm.
opposite of why we bought the place. So it was really that hurt a lot too. But with money going out every month and growth just being so slow, I kind of turtled up, right? And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't I invested all this money into rehabbing the laundromat, adding new equipment, renovating, all that stuff. And I spent $0 on number one, even telling people that I did it, letting them know. And then
So
number two,
marketing, yeah.
yeah, trying to get people in there. Right.
Mhm.
And I got scared to invest in marketing because I was already losing a bunch of money. And
Mm.
I was like, I can spend even more money trying to market, but I don't really know what I'm doing and I don't know who to trust and I don't know what to do. And it got so scary, right? And so it just took time for the word to get out that that business has been turned around under new management and for people to sort of trickle in. So it took a couple years to actually hit that break even and profitability point.
Okay. But from there, what made you start want to open another one?
Yeah. I mean, I saw the potential, right? Even though it didn't work out with that one, the dream was still alive and well in my heart.
Mhm. Mhm.
If not in reality, it was alive and well in my heart, right? And so I I was like, okay, look. And I wasn't actually looking for another one. I had a broker I had met in the industry who brought me an off-market deal, a pocket listing, and it was a seller finance deal, and it was seller finance with the land and the
Wha-
yeah and the laundromat. And so it was just sort of this opportunity that fell in my lap, and I jumped at it, and I was like, okay. And I wasn't out of the woods with the other one. I was still losing money with the other one, but I was like, well, if I do this one right, and I've learned all these lessons now, and so as long as I don't make those mistakes again, maybe this one can even help cover the other one until I can get that one
Mhm.
up and running.
Mhm.
Um,
So how far into your first laundromat did you buy the second?
I want to say 9 or 10 months,
Okay.
less than a
Okay.
year.
Wow.
This one also didn't work out as planned. I
Spoiler alert.
I thought I learned all the lessons, but it turned out there were more lessons to be learned.
To learn.
So it
So
was
now you
rough,
have
man.
two underwater
It was a rough
laundromats.
it was a rough go. But what made that one a little easier was I bought that one under market price,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
the real estate had some equity in it, and so that just kind of made it a little more palatable to be able to be like, okay, I found out some more things that I needed to know in this business, learned some more great lessons to never make again. But I also have this real estate here, and so that did help sort of soften the blow a little bit.
Cool, cool. But now, a decade later,
Uh-huh.
it seems like you've turned things around, even though you're in this transition period of getting rid of some to be able to purchase some bigger stuff. Were you at a point where everything was to all your laundromats were totally profitable?
But yeah, I mean, I think
Mhm.
things finally evened out. Like this business is great because it was an essential business before it was cool, right? Everybody needs clean clothes, and it's a what I call like a rhythmic or a habitual business, right? A lot of people do their laundry on the same day at the same time every single week or every other week or whatever
Mhm.
their rhythm is. And so it's got pretty consistent cash flow. So when you gain a customer, they get into the habit of coming to your laundromat. And then at that point,
Yep.
they're your customer to lose. Like you really only lose a
Mhm.
customer if they move away or if you're just slacking on keeping your business up. Right. And so as you sort of accumulate over time, they just sort of stack on top of each other. So yeah, I mean, the businesses were profitable. And again, the dream, the flame is still flaming in my heart, right? And I think now it's more okay, what would this look like to really scale it out, which has
Mhm.
been difficult to do in our industry for a long time, but I think now is becoming a little more possible. So just that's where I'm at now is exploring
Mhm.
how to do that and what that might look like.
That's pretty cool though. I want to talk about what are some like must like knows when you want to start like a laundromat business. What are some things that you just have to walk into kind of understanding?
Yeah, oh, depends. Are you asking about on the acquisition or once you actually own it and what should you know?
I want to know on the acquisitions. I guess
Mhm.
it's both on the
Yeah.
acquisition side and then the daily operation side.
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking acquisitions, like here's the rub for laundromats is they're cash businesses by and large still. There more and more of them have like digital payment systems, which is awesome because it makes the due diligence really easy. But still the majority of them are cash businesses. So valuing them and really drilling into how are they actually performing can be tricky. And there's a lot of potential gotchas in that
Mhm.
process, which is I ran into a bunch of them personally. And now I've done a ton of consulting where I've seen a whole lot of things, right? Where sellers or brokers are trying to slip things past people or things that happen just unintentionally. And that due diligence it's critical, right? Making
Mhm.
sure that you know exactly, or at least as close to exactly as possible, what you're walking into before you close on that deal is critical, right? And so the way it works is that the seller's going to give you their numbers. Basically, you're going to make an offer based off of those numbers, and you're not really going to know how accurate they are. And you're going to include some contingencies on your offer. And then you're going to go in once it gets accepted, and you're going to go about verifying those numbers. And a lot of times you've got to layer multiple different ways of verifying the income on top of each other and just making sure there's a reasonable overlap between all the different ways of verifying income because no single way is really going to tell you the whole story for a laundromat. So that gets kind of tricky. So you should just know that going in that process is tricky. And I highly recommend anybody who's thinking about buying any business or any investment, especially for the first time, just have somebody do it with you who has done it before and who kind of understands the process. It will just save you so much time, so much money, so much headache, emotional damage that I suffered. You know what I mean? It's just it's a no-brainer, especially if you're talking about investing tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars into anything, whether that's cash out of your bank or loans or whatever. Hey, it's worth it to spend just a little tiny bit more to make sure you do it right the first time.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. In terms of operations, some things that you need to know is okay, one thing that I say a lot is anytime you have a lot of people or if you have machines, you're going to have problems. And laundromats have a lot of machines and a lot of people that are coming through there, right? So you are going to encounter problems. And this business is sold as passive income all the time. And I would say, listen, there's no business that's passive income. Zero businesses that are passive income, right? But if you take a look at the the scale, the spectrum of passivity versus activity, you can set your business up to lean pretty heavily on the passivity side. You're not going to be totally passive, but you can lean pretty heavily on that side of the spectrum with a laundromat. And that makes it really great. Also, you can lean pretty heavily the other way and actually build a really big business in this business. So it has a lot of flexibility, which is good. So one thing to know about operations is that number one, there are going to be some things to do if you're going to be the owner of the laundromat. Now, there's other ways to get into it. You can partner with people, you can invest in a fund, those kinds of things. But if you're going to own it, there are going to be things to do. So it's not going to be totally passive. But you have a lot of options on how you want to run your business. And it surprises me, even still to this day, like how simple this business is, but how many different ways you can run it. Right. And so really drilling down into what is my goal? Is my goal to free up time so I can have more time with my family and friends or my hobbies or this other business or whatever? Or is my goal to hit whatever, $50,000 a month of income or whatever your goal is, right? And depending on your goal, that will help you dictate how you want to set your laundromat business up. So that's one thing that I would say is that there are going to be things to do, problems to deal with, all that, but you can set the business up kind of the way that you want to help you achieve the goal that you have.
And I think the common question people would typically ask is like, how much time do you actually have to spend there? Does there have to be an operator? Because I used to go to old school, old man in the back, handing out coins and cleaning the machines and stuff like that. So there's usually somebody always there. But I know probably there like things differ depending on
Yeah.
what kind of business you have, what kind of machines you have, and all of that kind of stuff. People are gonna be like, okay, so as an owner of a laundromat, like how much time on the ground do you have to spend?
Yeah. So I mean, you're right. Like the answer to probably all of your questions is going to be it depends. But it does depend on how you set your business up. So there's plenty of laundromats that are unattended laundromats where somebody just comes in and cleans 2 hours a day and the rest of the day nobody's there for the business, right? And
Hmm.
if you're owning that kind of laundromat, sort of depending on your neighborhood and that kind of thing, you're probably looking at maybe 5, maybe 10 hours a week to manage that
Mm.
laundromat. But I think
Hmm.
10 is way on the high side. And maybe you'll hit 10 on some weeks where there's more problems than others. But, I'd say 5 hours is pretty good. And then there's semi-attended, partially attended models where somebody's there a chunk of the day, but then there's a chunk of the day where nobody's there. And then there's laundromats that are fully attended all the time. They're open. Somebody is there. Then there's laundromats that also have the service side of the business, right?
Yes,
So
that's what I was going to ask about
self-serve
this.
is
Yeah.
one
Hmm.
thing, but a huge opportunity for growth in this business right now is on the service side. And the service side would be like a drop off, wash, dry, fold, where people
Hmm.
bring in their dirty clothes. You or your attendant or whoever's working there takes them, processes the laundry, and gives them back when they come to pick it up, or pick up and delivery, where you actually have a driver who goes out and picks up laundry and brings it back to process. And that side of the business can be super lucrative, but at least initially will probably require a little more time and effort on your part. And especially
Hmm.
depending on if you're working some of those shifts to help get it off the ground or those kinds of things.
So, what changes, like over the last couple of years, like within the business, have you seen as far as equipment, automation, payment systems, or even like delivery services? Like, is there like a DoorDash for laundry services?
Yeah, actually, you can use DoorDash to do that with some of the softwares that are available now. Yeah, so
Oh, that's cool.
I sort of half joke, but it's not really a joke. Our industry for decades has been like a sloth riding a turtle wading through molasses in terms of technological development
Uh
or change of any kind. Like we just have not changed for decades. And then the last couple of years, we're starting to see quite a bit of changes. There's been a lot more payment system options, credit card or Apple tap to pay
huh.
or
Hmm.
loyalty card systems, which have been around for a little while, but they're really starting to come into their own now and be a little more valuable tools for some of our businesses. And then obviously softwares to help us manage wash, dry, fold, pick up and delivery orders, keep everything organized so we're not losing people's clothes or mixing them up. Having apps for our drivers so that we can optimize driver routes so they're not driving all over the city all day long, wasting gas and time. So all that technology Machines have been getting more and more efficient in terms of utilities, which is good because utilities keep going up like crazy all over the place. And yeah,
Yes.
I know it's craziness. So yeah,
Hmm.
we're seeing a lot of that development. And then we're seeing a big boom on the service side of the business. So we're seeing more laundromats become more full service laundry centers, essentially,
Hmm.
where you can come in and do your self serve, do your laundry yourself. You can do that. You can come drop it off, or we'll come pick it up. We do all of it. Larger stores, bigger machines. It used to be all top load machines. Now we're all trying to get rid of the top load machines because they use too much water and they don't clean clothes as well and
Mm.
they create a huge mess and yada yada yada. And now there's 80, 100, 120 pound machines where you can essentially wash your children in them. Don't wash your children in them,
Please do not.
metaphorically. Wash all their clothes all at once. But yeah,
Hmm.
these huge machines, right, that are more and more available. And so, yeah, I mean, I think those are some of the things that are starting to develop. And I think the implications of all that are yet to be determined. But I think the service side will continue to grow. I think we'll see as people get into this business, we see this a lot where people get into it wanting the passive income and then decide they can and want to build a bigger business. And so I think we'll see more people building either bigger businesses or having more locations, those kinds of things. I think all that is probably in the future here for us.
No, I love I can see how that has grown. One more question, like as far as can you just join a laundry franchise as opposed to doing everything on your own? Because I've seen bigger laundromats.
Yeah, so they've been trying to do franchises for a while in the
Mhm.
industry,
Mhm.
and we've seen them kind of come and go. There's a one right now called Laundrolab and one called Wave Max. Those are probably the two big ones that are trying to get off the ground right now. We'll see. We'll see. Like I know those guys and they're good people. They know this business really well. For me, one of the big benefits of a franchise is sort of that brand recognition, but I just don't feel like you're going to get that with laundromats because it's okay. Say you're in Northern California, I'm in Southern California. Say I want to go visit you. I'm like, oh, I got to do my laundry. I'm not going to go look for a specific brand of laundromat. I'm going to look for the closest one to me that
Closest
has
one.
decent reviews,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
that's what I'm
Mhm.
looking for.
Right.
And the other sort of benefit of a franchise is having the standard operating procedures, having all the systems in place. But for most laundromats, there's really not a whole lot of systems to have in place.
So that's interesting to know in itself too. But like when you're talking about that wave of like people doing a lot of full service stuff, though, the
Mhm.
name recognition might be easier because you're just going to go on an app and be like, oh yeah, I know these people. I don't
Totally.
know Bill and Ted's Laundromat. I
Yeah.
just know.
I would use
you know.
theirs though if it was Bill and Ted.
Definitely.
Excellent. Yeah.
See, I think we're the same age. I think
Yeah,
we would
that's
go
right.
on the
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think that there's more of an opportunity there, but I'm not seeing franchising on the pickup and delivery side
Right.
right now.
Okay.
But I am seeing some companies, there are some companies like a Happy Nest or whatever that essentially license their brand to laundromat owners and trying to have some brand recognition that way. So maybe that'll take off more than it has. I mean, it's working pretty well in some markets, but we'll see. It's it's just not that difficult to do it on your own. And
I mean,
so
that's refreshing to know
no, which
actually
is
that you
good.
can
Yeah.
still, yeah, you can still keep it very much mom and pop. It doesn't have to be like this thing, and there's not this big pressure because I think a lot of industries are seeing that pressure of automation,
Mhm.
and a lot of people are losing their jobs, and so they're
Mhm.
looking for something that they can do to sustain a reasonable income without having without that fear of being taken over or not having a source of income. And if
Mhm.
this is something that's relatively easy, that's still like mom and pop ish, is super like self entrepreneurial that you could just do, I think it's a good industry to get into.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and here's what's interesting about it is I got really into the financial freedom through real estate investing and I was like, yes, I was listening to all the podcasts everywhere, reading the books, all that stuff, and I was on that hype train and then I just kind of stopped and I was like, man, at like $200 a door of cash flow, I've got to have a lot of
A lot of
doors.
doors.
And I'm not even trying to make that much money. But what's great about laundromats is that for 99% of America, 1 to 3 laundromats is all it would take to get you to replace that income, right? And
That's bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I just think that it's one of the best ways for somebody who's trying to exit their 9 to 5 or just achieve financial freedom and obviously even just have some income on the side. I
Mm.
think it's just one of the best ways to go about that there is, especially right now in today's market.
You've definitely convinced me. But I want to know, I know you put together like a cheat code and you do consulting. So how can people work with you or find your resources that you have?
Yeah, so everything, I mean, everything's at laundromatresource.com. We have a podcast where how this whole thing started was I was not trying to do anything crazy here. I just was like, man, I have all these like really expensive lessons. I should just share them with people because there's nothing
Mhm.
else out there. So I started
Mhm.
a little blog and then I was like, man, writing is so hard. I'm just going to do YouTube. It's way easier to just talk to the camera. So then I started a YouTube channel and then I was like, man, if I really want to help people and I really want to get better in this business, I should talk to the people who are the best in the business, right? So then I started the Laundromat Resource podcast and that has been awesome. It's grown like crazy. This little laundromat podcast, it's grown like crazy. And I interview the best people in the business and owners and other industry professionals. Something you're interested in, any of those places, YouTube, podcast, laundromatresource.com. And when you're like, yes, I'm 100% in. I want to buy a laundromat. I compiled everything that you need into
Mhm.
into one course. Not just all the information that comes from my personal experience, all the information that comes from all my interviews that I do with these successful owners, all the information I do from my consulting calls, all the information from live Q&As. I do a live webinar every single week and compile questions from people. All that stuff is in this course, yes, but also all the tools and resources that we have created to help make this process of analyzing a laundromat and doing the due diligence on a laundromat to make it easy and as clear and simple as possible. All that is included in that course. So if that's something that you decide, hey, I want to get into this business, that course is like gold there. And I'll give you a link that you can put in the show notes or wherever you keep that
Perfect.
stuff. But yeah, it really is a good course. And it's not me trying to sell the course because for me, the course it's not my business, but the course is just something that I've put together that I think will just help a lot of people and has helped a lot of people to get in this business the right way the first time, which is
Like I
crucial.
said, you're either going to pay with time or you're going to invest some money into it. But I think you still have an amazing amount of free resources that
Totally.
weren't available when you were opening your business. So I always tell people, if it's something that you're really interested in, really dive into the free resources until you're just like, okay, I have the baseline information that I need. But in order to really get started and really to see it through, you probably want to invest in a course or a consultation to make sure that you're doing everything right. And that'll give you the accountability also to kind of just do it. Because a lot of people start stuff and don't finish stuff and think that they're
Mhm.
interested in something, but then get lost in the weeds. And I think that if this is something, and it sounds very lucrative, very doable for anybody, pretty much it's accessible for anybody. So I always say this: check out the free stuff. If you like the free stuff, just go ahead and invest in the programs because it's going to accelerate your learning curve and it's going to save you so much money in like mistakes. Like I have made several money mistakes and that's why I'm just like, oh, listen, if you whatever you've done, I've probably done 3 times over. And if I could have somebody that can walk me through those things so I don't have to make those costly mistakes, like it's super valuable, invaluable, I should say.
Yeah,
So I'll
I
definitely
agree.
have all those links in the show notes. And I could just say I'm totally fascinated now with laundromats. So now I'm gonna go down this whole laundromat rabbit hole. Um, and see if it's going to be an investment choice for me, because I feel like it's super doable. I see the need for more in my neighborhood, and my neighborhood is expanding a lot. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more. And I've learned so much in this podcast. I'm just like, man, like what you don't know, you just don't know. And so I'm always on the quest of learning. But you're a great conduit of knowledge. I think that
Thank you.
the way that you present information is super digestible. And I just appreciate you being here to share with my audience, because I know that they'll find some value. And even if it's not something that they thought about, it's something that is definitely worth looking into. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I don't know, it's probably more embarrassing to have such a great time talking about laundromats than all the other embarrassing things that I shared today, but I do. So I appreciate you humoring me and let me talk laundromats with you.
Listen, I talk about some pretty obscure things. Like I talk about weird money stuff, and then I
Yeah.
talk about weird women's health stuff. So like I'm on the spectrum of always really doing deep dives into some topics that people usually don't talk about at a dinner table. So
Good.
this has been fascinating to
Yeah,
me.
that's what I
So
like to hear. I'm in the right place
I
then.
love
I'm in
it.
the right place.
Definitely in the right place. But you guys, if you want to get access to Jordan's resources, I'm going to have all the links in the show notes so you guys can check him out. Check out his YouTube channel, podcast, course, and consulting. So again, thank you, Jordan. It's been a blast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.